Hey guys, Political Junkie 2414 here, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be doing another 2024 US Senate analysis video, or another analysis video on a 2024 Senate race, but today I'm not going to be looking at a state that is competitive in the general election, more so one that has a competitive primary election, and that one is the state of Maryland, where we have a very interesting open race that is going to be very intriguing to watch and one that I think deserves, a video. So before we get into it, if you like what you see already, hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with someone who you think would enjoy it. I would really appreciate it. So let's get into Maryland. Now, Maryland's a very Democratic state. It hasn't voted Republican in, I think, since like 1990 or 1988. Yes, George W. Bush was the last Republican to win it on the presidential level, and in 2020, Joe Biden won the state by 32 or 33 points against Donald Trump. He did this mostly by, doing really well in the cities of Baltimore and, the suburbs outside of DC. Um, in the central part of the state, this is really what, gives Democrats such a strong advantage, in the state of Maryland. Republicans sometimes win more counties than Democrats, but it doesn't matter because the counties with the most population are the ones that are the bluest and thus give Democrats an overwhelming advantage in the state. So Maryland, has two Democratic senators, but one of them is retiring, and that is Ben Cardin. He was first elected all the way back in 2006, I believe. Yes, 2006. This was a competitive-ish race to replace the then incumbent Paul Sarbanes, who was a Democrat. He was retiring. Um, he served in the Senate for like 30, for I think 30 years. And Ben Cardin at the time was a U.S. representative. He, was running for this seat, and he faced a pretty competitive primary against I'm not going to try to pronounce this guy's name because I don't want to butcher the name, but yeah, he was a former U.S. representative. I think he returned to the House recently, and the former president of the NAACP. And in the end, Cardin was able to narrowly beat his Democratic opponent in the primary. You can see he lost a couple of counties like Prince George's and the city of Baltimore, but overall he was able to get by with 44% of the vote. But then he faced a competitive general election against Michael Steele, who was, I believe, lieutenant governor. Yeah, lieutenant governor of Maryland. He, is a fairly moderate Republican. These days he's, an outspoken critic of former President Donald Trump. And so, as such, he was a fairly good fit for Maryland. He ran for the seat, but he lost by 10 points, which is pretty respectable for a blue state like Maryland, but it still was a loss nonetheless. And, Cardin was able to succeed Sarbanes in the Senate. And then in 2012, he won by a pretty massive margin, 30 points. This is where, you really saw, the state return to its heavily Democratic nature for this Senate seat. Um, Again, back in 2012 and 2006, it was a very different time. There was a lot less polarization when it came down to the races with presidential and Senate races. I think Cardin did outrun Barack Obama in terms of margin in the state, but there was an independent here. And then in 2018, which was a blue wave year, Cardin won his most recent term by a whopping 35 points, roughly. He cracked 90% in Prince George's County. And the reason why I keep a, remember the name of that county because that's going to come in important later when we talk about one of the candidates in this race. But you can see he did very well here. He was not only relying on the fact that Maryland was a super blue state, but it was also a blue wave year, and Maryland only seems to be getting bluer. It doesn't seem to be like a situation with New York where New York City is kind of trending Republican because a lot of people are leaving it, and also, some former Democrats are becoming more Republican. I think that, that was kind of, not, that was something Lee Zeldin capitalized on in that governor's race, but not necessarily something that he caused. So yeah, so Cardin won a third term, and now he's decided he announced a couple months ago that he's not going to, be running for re-election next year. He's going to retire. He's going to be 80 years old, I believe, this year. So, I think, and, he's been in Congress for almost 40 years. So, he has decided to, hang up, to, retire and, not run for re-election. But there is a competitive Democratic primary to replace him. Cardin's not endorsing anybody, but we have a couple of interesting candidates. We have Angela Alsobrooks, who is the Prince George's County executive. That's the same county I was talking about just a minute ago. We have Will Joando, who's the at-large Montgomery County councilman. I do, think there was some talk about him potentially running for Jamie Raskin's House seat if Jamie Raskin ran for Senate. Raskin was very much he was a target of speculation, or not a target, um I don't know exactly how to how to describe it, but he was very much there was a lot of speculation about him getting into the race, and so was there for John Sarbanes. I actually didn't know that he declined, but I was I for a long time I thought that Raskin and Sarbanes were going to run, but before either of them declined, I kind of leaned towards no, and then they both declined. I guess Sarbanes decided to announce the other day. But yeah, I wasn't expecting him to run. He's, Paul Sarbanes' son. So there was some potential for him to get in the race, but it looks like he's going to run for re-election, even though it doesn't say it right here. But yeah, Raskin and Sarbanes, were both speculated candidates. Raskin, of course, is the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, very well known for being on the January 6th Select Committee in last year's Congress. But both of them have decided that they are going to stay. And, if Democrats retake the House, Raskin would become chair of the Oversight Committee because, as long as he maintains his top Democratic, position on the committee. And you can see here that, a lot of, potential candidates like Wes Moore, who, is the governor of Maryland, he just succeeded Larry Hogan earlier this year. He's decided not to run. Tom Perez, who was also a gubernatorial candidate in 2022, has decided not to run. But let's go back up here and talk about the candidates that have announced. So I already mentioned Alsa Brooks. She is the Prince George's County executive. She's gotten a lot of nationwide recognition. Even prior to announcing her Senate bid, she you know was dealing. Prince George's County, I believe, was the county most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic in Maryland. Um, Potentially in the entire country. I think don't quote me on that second part, but I believe it was the most, it was the county that was most damaged by the COVID-19 pandemic. And also Brooks, gained a lot of recognition for for doing a, pretty good job at implementing measures to stop the virus from spreading any further. And so I think that that earned her a lot of respect of her constituents and with the Democratic Party in Maryland. We also, aside from Joando, not exactly sure how to say that. We have Jerome Siegel, who I do believe, originally announced he was going to run for president of against Joe Biden, but he's decided to run for this Senate seat. He's a pretty progressive guy. I honestly don't think he has a lot of name recognition. He's a perennial candidate. I don't think he's really got that good of a chance. I don't even know who Steve Swerfer is. So yeah, he's an Air Force veteran, but I haven't heard of him. But then, really the only other major candidate besides also Brooks in this race is David Trone. He is a representative from Maryland's 6th Congressional District, which is on the western side of Maryland. Trone was first elected in 2018. When John Delaney, I believe, decided to retire from the seat to run for president. Of course, that didn't really go anywhere, but he retired to focus on that presidential campaign in 2020. And Trone has been a member of the House for the last couple of election cycles. He was most recently elected in 2022 against Neil Parrott, I believe, if we can pull this up. Yeah, he was reelected against Neil Parrott by about 9 points, almost 10. This is a pretty similar margin to what Joe Biden got in the district. I don't think Trone is a phenomenal candidate, in a solid blue state like, Maryland. Have to really you have to be a really, really bad Democrat, I guess, to really fail, or a really good Republican to end up winning. There was some speculation about Larry Hogan, the former governor, getting into the race, but he declined. That was the same story in 2022. A lot of people thought he was going to challenge Chris Van Hollen, but he did not in the end. So main, takeaway here is that also Brooks and Trone, really seem to be the front runners in this race. And we're going to talk about, some of the other potential candidates. We have, John Cardin, who is Ben Cardin's nephew. He's expressed interest. We have a couple of other candidates here that I don't know a lot about. We also have John Delaney, who hasn't expressed any interest. We have Peter Franco, and, a couple of other candidates here. I won't focus too much on them. Really, I'm going to be talking about, this race from the lens of it being a contest between also Brooks and Trone, which I think is appropriate. So if we look at the endorsements here, also Brooks, despite kind of being not a super not a super nationalized figure, has a lot of national endorsements. She has the endorsement of Chris Van Hollen, the other senator from Maryland. She has the endorsements of this congressman, the one that I was talking about earlier, Kwesi Mfume. Yeah, I'll just say it right there, but correct me if I'm, mispronouncing that. We have, she has support from Steny Hoyer and a couple of other Maryland and Massachusetts, and this one representative from Massachusetts and Albert Wynn. But yeah, a lot of state legislatures or legislators and senators, representatives have endorsed also Brooks. She also has the endorsement of Emily's List, which is a pro-choice organization that focuses on, I think, electing pro-choice women to Congress. Uh, Will Joando doesn't really have that many people, and David Trone has posted a couple of endorsements. None of them are super, official, but they are, kind of, there's mostly state legislators. And then we have, free in the decline to endorse column. Cardin, the incumbent senator, has said he's not going to endorse anyone. Neither had, same with Jamie Raskin and Wes Moore. So overall, it seems like that there isn't a lot of influence when it comes down to, the main top Democratic figures in Maryland, but we do, have a couple, most of them we do have some endorsements, most of them going to Angela Alsobrooks. If we look at the fundraising, David Trone, is a former, he does come from a very wealthy background, and he's used a lot of his own personal money he's self-funded a lot of his campaign. If you look at the $10 million he's raised, well, pretty much all of it, almost all of it was self-funded by him. Also, Brooks is pretty far behind, which is not a great sign for her. And again, endorsements, even though Trump doesn't have a lot of endorsements, sometimes that does not matter. It did not matter for John Fetterman in Pennsylvania. He won that primary, with even though, Connor Lamb, the representative from the Pittsburgh area, had most of the, Democratic establishment behind him. But overall, I think also Brooks is going to resonate well with, voters, with black voters in the state. Maryland is a very African American state. I think it's one of the blackest states in the country. I'm not sure exactly, what number it's ranked in terms of the black population, but it's pretty high up there. I think that, she's going to win Prince George's County for sure. She is also going to be at a debate with, in her home, town of Prince George's County, where, Joando and Trone are both going to be attending or have been invited. None of them have really accepted. Um, I guess, yeah, I didn't really, I kind of jumped the gun on that, but I assume that they will all attend the debate until, it's said otherwise. And also Brooks, I think, just because she's in her hometown doesn't necessarily mean she'll do well in the debate. I think Trone definitely has, I think also Brooks has more charisma than Trone, but Trone also has more money. So it's kind of a battle of who do you think the electorate's going to resonate more with? And personally, I think that also Brooks has more of a national profile. I think that this is what the county map will be. I think Trone's going to do well in, the 6th district, the western part of the state. He'll win Frederick County, which is kind of this, pretty college educated, or I'm not exactly sure the demographics, but it's historically Republican. It's been trending Democratic. So yeah, but I think also Brooks is going to do very well in Southern Maryland, in Prince George's County, and in Baltimore. I think she's going to do well in Jamie Raskin's area, his where his congressional district is, which is in Montgomery County, and I think Trum's going to do well in some of the rural areas. I think, overall, Trump could end up pulling ahead and becoming, the Democratic nominee. But overall, I do think that Elsa Brooks is currently favored in this race. I think she has the momentum, but we'll have to see. I think the primary is in June or something in May. It's May 14th of next year. So yeah, they have started, primary dates are starting to be set now that we are getting closer and closer to, the end of 2023 and more people are starting to prepare for 2024. Or more, political organizations. So, yeah, I do believe that also Brooks is currently the favorite in this race, but this is going to be a very interesting race with very interesting dynamics. uh, you know, I doubt that the Republicans will put up someone strong. I think they're probably the most recognizable candidate they could put up would be Andy Harris, who's the current representative. But again, I doubt he's going to run. Larry Hogan's already said he's not going to run. And Maryland's a blue state. I think that, Republicans are kind of deterred. From running. Even someone like Larry Hogan, I don't think would win this race. Governor's races are very different than Senate races, and I think that that's something that really needs to be pointed out. So yeah, to kind of wrap it up, my thoughts on, this primary, I think that right now also Brooks is the favorite, but Trone with his money and, if he makes, some inroads with, some more crucial parts of the Democratic base, maybe with some white suburban voters. He could potentially make some inroads. He could make this, a more, toss-uppy primary. But right now, I think also Brooks has the advantage. She has the endorsements, which don't, again, doesn't necessarily mean she's guaranteed to win. But it definitely is a good sign. We'll have to wait to see what polling is. The fundraising looks good for Trump right now, but again, it was kind of always going to be that way with his self-funding. So yeah, tell me what you guys think about this primary. Do you think also Brooks is favored to succeed Ben Cardin? Do you think Trone is going to be the next senator from Maryland? How do you think this primary is going to play out? Let me know down in the comments below. Next time, I think I'm going to talk about an actual, battleground state in the general election, but I kind of wanted to cover this, primary because not a lot of people are talking about it. It's been very quiet, and in a state like Maryland, with a Democratic incumbent retiring, it makes for an interesting primary, but not a lot of people are probably going to be talking about it until it actually gets until the primary date gets closer. Because I mean, again, it's not like it's Nevada or Montana or Arizona that are going to be crucial states in the November general election. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like the video if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this video with someone who you think would enjoy it, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more content like this. Thank you all so much for watching. Check out my non-political channel, Interactor127, and my, comrades channel, Grinds666. And I'll see you guys next time when I talk about all things politics. See ya.